Hey guys, Marcus C. Williams here. So, if you haven't seen today, the Supreme Court basically said that some of our laws in New York State, as far as it pertains to the Second Amendment, are unconstitutional. Now, if you live in New York State, you might know that already. The fact of the matter is, none of it's good. What's happening in New York State as far as it comes to our Constitution. They're limiting the First Amendment, and they're basically doing their best to eviscerate the Second Amendment. And you know, once they get rid of the Second Amendment, they're going to get rid of what's left of the First Amendment. So we have some very serious issues. But aside from that, let's get back to what happened with the Supreme Court. So basically, the Supreme Court's ruling and verdict, and I'll do a longer video about this later on, but basically it said that right now, New York is a shall issue state. Like, they'll decide if they want to give you a permit. And the ruling basically says that it shouldn't be a shall issue state, it should be a will issue state. Now, what's that really mean practically? It means that on the books right now, we have a law that basically makes it so that you have to prove your need for a firearm for your own safety. Now, I don't know if you guys live in New York State, or I live in Rochester, so the crime is out of control, right? And also in most of New York State, they've defunded the police. So the fact that they make it extra difficult for law-abiding citizens to own firearms is nonsensical, right? You'd figure if the police aren't going to protect you, you should at least be able to protect yourself, right? But they don't want that from the people. They don't want the people to be able to be armed. But the ones in power, our elected officials, have their own firearms. They have their own security, which has firearms. But they don't want you, the law-abiding citizens, to have firearms. So if you can make that make sense to me, I'd love to hear it. So in my specific city, we are outrageous when it comes to violent crime right now. Violent crime is through the roof. We're almost like up, like we're so high up. I'll give you an example. We're so high up. We have surpassed per capita Chicago. So that's really crazy, right? Because everybody knows how rough and rugged Chicago is, but it's ridiculous, right? So what's going on in New York State? Why don't you want people to be able to defend themselves when you've already defunded the police? There are plenty of questions out there. Your first question should be as well, what's happening? Are people committing crimes with legally owned firearms? And the answer to that is absolutely not. The criminals that have firearms have obtained them illegally. Most of them are illegal in New York State. So you got to kind of wonder why our governor is like, oh, we should go back to muskets. We can't have people with guns because that's not what the Constitution is, and this and that and the third. Let me tell you something about the Constitution. The Bill of Rights, you know, the first, pretty much the 10 bills in the Bill of Rights, the first ones in the Constitution. There's only one bill. There's only one amendment that says shall not be infringed. Do you know what that is? The Second Amendment. Okay? So the framers of the Constitution went through all of the trouble of writing out the original Constitution, but the only amendment in which they put shall not be infringed is the Second Amendment, because they knew how important it was. Our governor said, oh, well, we should go back to muskets. Well, maybe your security should go back to muskets. Maybe you should use a musket to protect yourself, okay? Maybe you don't live in a high crime neighborhood, but my neighborhood is really rough and rugged, okay? I love my neighborhood. I love my people. I love my assembly district. That's why I'm running for 137th Assembly District this year. But the fact of the matter is that we cannot deny the facts. Crime is out of control. And our elected officials aren't doing anything about it. And we really do deserve better. How you doing, good brother? I'd like to give you a card. This is me, Marcus C. Williams. I'm running for state assembly. Please check me out.
All right, man.
All right, November 8th. All right, I'll catch you later. So, the fact of the matter is this. Muskets were what the military was using at that time. So the rationale from the government, from the governor, I should say, is allegedly that, well, muskets were what were being used at the time when the founders wrote the Constitution. Okay, fair enough. Muskets were what they were using at that time. However, that's also what the military was using. So if we're using that logic and following that process of thought, either the military should also be restricted to muskets, or the citizens should be able to have access to all of the weapons that the military does. So you think on that. But back to the court ruling and what does it really mean? It really means that in New York State, and I have a friend who's a lawyer, so he does some cases when it comes to pistol permits and people who have been denied pistol permits. Many people in New York State get denied pistol permits because, as I said, you have to prove that you need it for your safety. What does that even mean, right? Like, crime is through the roof, violent crime is through the roof, armed robbery is through the roof, people coming into people's house is through the roof. Like, how do you need to prove in New York State that you need a firearm? I think it's quite the opposite. You need to prove in New York State that you don't need a firearm, you know? So we need to go back to the actual Constitution, the way that the laws are written, because, again, it says shall not be infringed. But our elected officials are making it so we're not able to own firearms, and they're making it difficult. In my city, it takes about 18 months for you to apply for a pistol permit, get it processed, and other things. You know why? Well, I mean, we'd like to know why too, right? Nobody really knows, but I've talked to the county executive's office about it, and I've talked to, And I talked to some people in, oh my goodness, I forget what Jamie Romeo does. I don't know. I forget what she does, but she's in the office that really deals with that. So I talked to her office too, and basically what I've been told is that it's because they don't have enough judges. I take issue with that, but it's okay. It's understandable, right? So the lack of the judges affects and impacts only the people in the city where there's a high poverty rate, a crime rate through the roof, more than almost any place in the whole state, and a high concentration of black people. You sit and think about that. Do you guys know that black people have the lowest number of firearms per capita out of any ethnicity? It's the truth. You can look it up. So why would they want to stop black people from owning guns? You want to know something else interesting? They always have said for years, and you might have heard this, especially if you're black, if black people start getting more guns and stuff, then they'll change the laws and they'll stop allowing people to own guns. Well, wouldn't you know that blacks are one of the fastest demographics of growing firearm ownership, and now they're trying to restrict firearm ownership? Yeah, an amazing coincidence, isn't it? Things that make you go, So this is what we're dealing with here in New York, and it's not okay. Our governor is going down the wrong path. All of our assembly people that see the crime, that see the violence that we're dealing with every day, don't come out and say or do anything. As a matter of fact, they've done everything that they can to further restrict and limit law-abiding citizens from owning firearms. It's bad, you guys, and we need to be able to protect ourselves, right? I spoke to a lovely lady a couple of minutes ago. She was saying that she won't walk down Thurston Road, which is the direction I was just coming from. So it's one of the main arteries in my assembly district in my neighborhood. It's one of the big ones. So it's crazy. And she says she used to walk down there without any fear or concern or stuff like that. But now, after all the crime and violence, she's so concerned for her safety, she won't even walk there. And that's something that's common that you hear from a lot of people. They're concerned about their own safety. So why is our state government trying to make it more difficult for us to own firearms when it's our constitutional right? They won't protect us, right? Because they defunded the police, demoralized the police, and disincentivized policing. But they don't want you to own a firearm to be able to protect yourself. Then I think what really upset me the most about what our governor got on the television and said was the fact that she's like, oh, well, the Supreme Court, the highest court in the land, the court that's only job is to uphold the Constitution, because the Constitution is a document that our whole nation is based off of. Based on their ruling, she's like, oh, I don't care what their ruling is. I'm going to do what I want to do. Okay? Now, you make that make sense to me. You make that make sense to me. How are you going to do what you want to do when the highest court in the land is telling you that that's not okay? We deserve better. And we can't keep going the direction that we're going in. We need to get better elected people in office. And we have to do something. Because if they're not going to defend us and they're going to limit our ability to defend ourselves, we've got some serious problems and we need to have some serious, real conversations. You guys be blessed and be well. I'll catch you later.